My dear seniors, imagine this. 73-year-old Harold, a retired teacher, was the picture of health, walking every morning, eating what he thought was a balanced diet, and never once having any heart problems, until one afternoon, while gardening, he felt a crushing pain in his chest, collapsed, and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors told his family it was a massive heart attack. And here's the shocking part. Harold had no high blood pressure, no family history of heart disease, and his cholesterol levels were normal. Yet the culprit, the doctors quietly admitted when the cameras weren't around, was a single food he'd been eating almost every day. The same food millions of seniors eat without knowing it silently causes over 90% of senior heart attacks according to internal health insurance data that rarely makes the news. And before you think you're safe, let me tell you, this food is hiding in far more meals than you realize, even the so-called healthy ones your doctor approves of. And the moment you hear what it is, you might be shocked enough to clean out your pantry tonight. But here's the twist. I'm not going to reveal it just yet because first, you need to understand why this food is so dangerous specifically for people over 60, and how big food companies have spent millions making sure you never connect it to heart disease in seniors, even though the science is screaming the truth. Picture this. Back in 2014, a group of researchers at a major university discovered that when seniors eat this food regularly, it triggers a specific inflammatory response in the arteries, making them stiff and more prone to clotting. And in people over 70, this can happen in as little as 3 weeks of daily consumption. But here's the dirty secret. This finding was buried, never widely reported, and the lead scientist who spoke out was quietly retired after funding for his lab mysteriously dried up. And when you see the industry connections to certain heart-healthy campaigns, you'll understand why. Now, I know some of you are already mentally scanning your diets, thinking it must be bacon or butter or salt, but those are the decoys. They've been demonized for years to distract from the real killer, and the moment I tell you what it is, I want you to remember that this isn't about one bad meal. It's about the cumulative effect, the years of slow damage that suddenly explode into a heart attack you never saw coming. But before the reveal, let's talk about a strange case from Ohio. A 68-year-old widow named Linda who was careful about her health, didn't smoke, barely drank, and yet ended up in the ICU after her third heart attack in 5 years. She kept blaming stress and genetics, but after a functional medicine doctor reviewed her food log, he circled one item that appeared almost daily, something she thought was harmless, even beneficial because it was marketed as a senior-friendly energy booster. And when she stopped eating it, her angina vanished within 2 weeks, and she never had another cardiac episode. This is the same thing Harold ate every day for lunch, and likely the same thing sitting in your fridge right now. All right, let's go deeper. This food is ultra-processed, high in a certain type of fat that doesn't just clog arteries, but actually damages the lining of your blood vessels, making them stickier so that tiny clots start forming silently, and these clots can break free at any moment and cause a sudden heart attack or stroke. In seniors, whose circulatory systems are already more fragile, this is like playing Russian roulette every time you eat it. The truly sinister part? Government dietary guidelines still list it as safe in moderation, even though their own internal testing in the late 90s showed it increased cardiovascular risk in older adults by over 300%. But those documents were quietly marked archived and replaced with industry-funded research that magically found no significant risk. And here's where it gets ugly. There's a reason you see it on menus everywhere. From diners to senior community cafeterias, from frozen dinners to healthy low-fat snacks. It's cheap, it tastes good, it has a long shelf life, and it's addictive, thanks to the way it interacts with dopamine in your brain, making you crave more without realizing it. This is why so many seniors who try to cut back on snacks fail, not because they have no willpower, but because they've been biochemically hooked. Now, you're probably wondering, if this is so bad, why isn't it banned? Well, here's the truth. Certain countries did ban it for a time, but the food industry fought back with lobbyists, loopholes, and reformulations that allowed them to keep selling it under different names. Even today, if you read the label, you might not recognize it, because it hides under aliases like vegetable shortening, partially hydrogenated oil, or stabilized vegetable fat. And yes, now you've probably guessed it. The killer I'm talking about is trans fat. And before you roll your eyes thinking you already avoid it, let me warn you, it's still in far more foods than the labels admit, thanks to a legal trick that allows companies to write ZUG trans fat, even if a single serving contains up to 0.5 grams, which means if you eat just a few servings of these zero products a day, you're still getting dangerous levels linked to sudden heart attacks in seniors. Harold's sandwich spread, trans fat. Linda's morning muffin, trans fat. That heart-healthy microwave popcorn, you guessed it, trans fat. And here's the kicker. Because seniors metabolize fats differently, these trans fats can stay in your system longer, prolonging the inflammation and damage to your arteries. So what can you do? First, stop trusting front-of-package claims and start reading the tiny ingredient list on the back. If you see partially hydrogenated anything, put it back. Second, replace processed snacks with whole foods, nuts, seeds, and olive oil-based spreads. Third, be aware that even restaurants that claim no trans fat often use fryer oil blends that have small amounts. And for seniors, small amounts over time are just as deadly as large doses. And if you're thinking, but I've eaten this for years and I'm fine, remember that heart disease often has no symptoms until it's too late. Harold felt great until the day he didn't. Linda had no warning before her first heart attack, and you might not either. The sad reality is that this food is a slow fuse. You don't feel the damage until the explosion happens. And by then, you can't undo the years of arterial damage. Now here's something you won't hear from your doctor. Cutting trans fats completely out of your diet for just 6 weeks has been shown in small but compelling studies to improve arterial flexibility, lower inflammation markers, and reduce clotting risk in seniors, which means you could literally start reversing the damage right now. I want you to imagine your arteries as smooth, clear rivers. Every time you eat this food, you're throwing sticky sludge into the water, and over time it builds up until the flow is blocked and disaster strikes. The choice is yours. Keep trusting the same industry that's been lying to you for decades, or take control, clean your diet, and give your heart a fighting chance to carry you into your 80s, 90s, and beyond. And before you reach for that next snack, ask yourself, do you really want to gamble your life for a few moments of flavor? Because Harold didn't think it would happen to him. Linda didn't think it would happen to her. And thousands of seniors every year don't think it will happen to them until it does. And here's where the real betrayal comes in. Not from your kitchen, but from the system that's supposed to protect you. For decades, food manufacturers have known that seniors are more vulnerable to the damage caused by this one ingredient because as we age, our arteries naturally stiffen and our blood vessels lose elasticity. Yet, instead of removing it, they've simply changed the name on the label to something you wouldn't recognize. In the 1970s, it was openly called partially hydrogenated oil, and people caught on, so they rebranded it as vegetable shortening, or hid it under harmless-sounding words like mono and diglycerides or emulsifiers. You think you're eating something innocent, crackers, peanut butter, even bread. But hidden inside is the silent heart attack trigger. Hospitals quietly acknowledge that after big holiday meals heavy with this ingredient, ER admissions for heart attacks in seniors spike by up to 25%. Within hours of eating it, lab tests show inflammation markers in the blood skyrocketing, triglycerides jumping, and blood viscosity thickening, making it harder for your heart to pump. That's why older adults often report feeling sluggish or dizzy after a big meal without realizing it's the first warning sign of a cardiac event brewing. The scariest part is that even a small amount can be dangerous for a senior heart that's already under stress from years of wear and tear. Studies have shown that just 2 grams per day, less than a teaspoon, can raise your risk of heart attack by 20%, and yet most Americans are eating 3 to 5 times that amount without even knowing it. If you're thinking, I'll just eat it occasionally, it can't be that bad, consider this. The damage from this ingredient is cumulative. Every bite stacks up, every gram builds on the last, and over months or years it's like adding one more brick to a dam, until the pressure becomes too much and it bursts. Except in this case, the burst is a blocked artery in your heart or brain. Seniors in their 70s and 80s don't have the luxury of decades for repair. Once the damage is done, recovery is slow and often incomplete. That's why knowing this now and eliminating it completely could mean the difference between enjoying 10 more years of independence or spending them in a nursing home recovering from a stroke or heart surgery. And here's the kicker. You won't hear about this on the evening news, not because the science isn't there, but because the companies that make billions selling these foods are also the ones buying advertising spots on those same networks. Cardiologists see the pattern every year, but most won't speak out publicly for fear of backlash from the food industry, which has powerful lobbyists. One retired doctor, who treated thousands of heart patients over his career, told me that he used to keep a notebook tracking exactly what his patients had eaten before their heart events. And he swore this one ingredient was the common denominator in 9 out of 10 cases. The irony is, it's not just in greasy junk food. It's in products marketed as heart healthy because they've been fortified with vitamins or use whole grains. But those labels mean nothing if this killer is hiding inside. Think about it. You could be following your doctor's advice to eat more whole wheat bread or certain breakfast cereals, believing you're doing the right thing while unknowingly clogging your arteries every single day. And it doesn't work slowly. In some cases, it triggers immediate physiological changes.